So F122 is out this week then, and I'm going to try and help you to decide whether you should or should not buy the game if you're still sitting on the fence. I'm going to run through the pros, the cons, also the more kind of neutral aspects, things that are changed that won't directly affect your buying decision, and then we're going to go through your guys' objections, which I had a huge response to over on Twitter. So let's get into it. So starting with the pros then. Now the most obvious changes, of course, with F122 is the updated season content. That includes the brand new cars and the brand new drivers, as well as the brand new Miami circuit. Also, you've got some updates to some other circuits, some actual layout changes to Australia, Spain and Abu Dhabi, plus a few little tweaks to other circuits. The handling model has also been improved, and it's also more challenging now. It's actually quite tricky on the traction zone, so if you're looking for a bit more of a challenge over the previous games, certainly the handling changes will be for you. Crossplay is another big pro for buying F122. It's not actually in there in release, but we're told it's coming in the next few months. They've not given an exact date on it, but if you want to play with your friends across different platforms, that could be a huge new thing because that hasn't been in any of the previous F1 games. If you're watching this video, you probably already know that F122 features the new F1 Life features. The idea of this is it puts you more in the shoes of the driver. You have an actual apartment that you can kind of customize with various bits. It's basically customization. So if you're interested in customizing the way that you look and the way your apartment looks and the way your home screen looks, this game could be for you. Along with that, they've also added supercars to the game, which are really good if you want a bit of variety in the game. If you don't just want to play F1, of course, you're probably not going to buy the game just for the supercars. But if you're perhaps on the fence thinking, yeah, I kind of do want it, but I'm not too sure, supercars do provide good variety and they are good fun to drive, but probably not a reason to buy the game on its own. It would need to add up with other features. Another cool feature they've added is VR, but it's for PC only. So if you're a PC gamer with a VR headset, I would say that alone is a very good reason to buy F122. But if those things don't apply to you, then this point's done and void. Another nice new feature they've added is adaptive AI. So if you're perhaps a beginner at the game, the AI should now adapt to your speeds. If you're making a few mistakes, perhaps you're quite inconsistent because you're struggling as you start out, the AI should sort of slow down and speed up with you so you can keep kind of racing with them rather than every time a mistake, the AI just all come flying past you and then you're just miles off the back of the pack. They should now adjust to your pace, which would be nice if you were starting out. So let's get on to the more neutral things then. Things that have changed but on their own aren't going to be any real deciding factor whether you buy the game or not. First of which is EA Music. Think like the FIFA music tracks they had in the FIFA games for a long time. They've got EDM music tracks in the game now, which does just make it feel a little bit more lively. Songs that you actually know in the menus and stuff. It is an improvement, but again, not a reason to buy the game on its own. They've also got 3 brand new career mode starting points. You can start as a kind of a backmarker team, as somewhere in the middle, or as a front running team. But again, that on its own isn't a feature I don't think that you'll buy the game for, because realistically, if you've got one of the previous games and you didn't really get very far in career mode, you won't really care, or you can just play the previous ones. So yeah, it's a nice feature, but I don't think it's a real game changer whether you should buy the game or not. They also added new podium sequences, which do look a little bit better and make it a little bit more rewarding if you do go on the podium, but again, not a feature to buy the game for. And the final neutral thing they've done is they've tweaked the menus slightly. For the most part, if you've got last year's game, you won't feel a massive difference in the menus. They've just improved them. They're a bit more intuitive. They look a bit better, particularly with the integration of F1 Life. They just make a bit more sense now with the menus. But again, quite a small change isn't going to impact your buying decision. Moving on to the cons then. This is reasons that you shouldn't buy this year's game, particularly if you own one of the more recent F1 games. The first reason that you may not want to buy the game is that, to be honest, the game feels more like an evolution rather than a revolution. It's not a big change year on year, this one. I felt like it was a bigger change last year, certainly. So that could mean that there's a bigger change coming next year. Of course, it's way too early to speculate on what might be in next year's game. But yeah, I don't know. There's some nice changes in there with F1 Life, and I've gone through them already with the pros. But it's just not a huge change year on year. If you've got F1 2021, and if you're looking for a big change, a big update, perhaps this one isn't for you. Another thing that they've done is they've actually removed the Breaking Point story mode. I guess they just didn't want to include the same story mode in the game. And of course, they probably didn't have a chance to completely do a new story or to do a new chapter or whatever it may be. So if you really like the Breaking Point story mode in F1 2021, or you haven't played it yet and you're interested in the story mode, F1 2021 is certainly better for that because there is no story mode at all in this game. You do get a career mode, of course. You kind of make your own, I guess, story within that, but there's no actual story mode as there was in F1 2021. There's also a distinct lack of material career mode changes. Now, I kind of covered this previously when I said it's more of an evolution than revolution, but career mode really hasn't changed very much. Normally they do update career mode quite a bit and they're always adding new features. This year, you've got the different starting points and there's a few more department events. But beyond that, it's the exact same career mode as before. You know, the upgrades are exactly the same. The resource tree hasn't changed. The car performances, of course, have changed. So, you know, if you wanted to start in an Alfa Romeo, for example, you would start with a better car than you have done previously. But beyond that, yeah, there's just not a lot of changes to career mode, which is kind of surprising for a game that normally concentrates quite heavily on career mode. And while I'm talking about reasons to not buy F122, it would be remiss of me to not mention potential bugs. And one big concern for me actually is that when I got the review build of the game, which was just 1 week before the game was released, they sent me a list of known issues with it that would apparently be fixed for a release day patch. So at the moment, I can't actually tell you how buggy or not the game will be on release. The fact though that there's that many bugs still in the game just 1 week before release is a bit concerning. There's a few bugs that I've seen already, outside of the ones that they've mentioned are known bugs in the game. There's an audio glitch with VR, which is still in the game. The game's crashed on me a couple of times. I've seen an invisible character in F1 Life, and it keeps telling me that I've unlocked a new supercar token when I haven't. All quite minor things, don't get me wrong, but the fact that I've noticed those within literally 10 minutes of playing the review build and they're not in the known bugs list. That being said, you know, I'm not expecting it to be a game that's ridiculously excessively buggy, certainly not more so than previous years. It will still be playable for the most part. There'll still be a few little annoyances, but they will iron those out. You know, they do patch the game last year. They patched the game till sort of February time. So for sort of 3/4 of a year, they were still patching the game, which in a yearly release cycle is not bad at all. But certainly, you know, depending on your preference, could be a reason not to buy the game. Another reason not to buy the game is that they haven't really changed multiplayer. You know, I know a lot of you guys are crying out for changes to multiplayer, to update it, to improve it. As far as I can tell, multiplayer remains almost entirely unchanged. Now, obviously, we have got the addition of crossplay, which in itself is a huge change to multiplayer. But setting that aside, there's no real other changes. There's no new game modes. There doesn't seem to really be any changes to the lobbies. No real material changes to multiplayer. So if you're a huge multiplayer fan hoping for new modes, big changes to multiplayer, other than crossplay, maybe this one's not for you. Bigger things that are unchanged, they haven't actually changed most of the tracks. You know, I mentioned the tracks in the pros that they have changed. Obviously got Miami brand new, you've got Spain, Australia, and Abu Dhabi. They've had big changes, layout changes. I know this can be a sore point for a lot of you saying, oh, you know, update the tracks, etc., etc. But yeah, I mean, I just don't think they've got the resources to massively update the tracks every single year and always make sure that they're looking exactly as they do in real life. So it means circuits like Spa have remained unchanged for many, many years, actually. And Spa in particular is in desperate need of an update. So if you're looking for every single track to be exactly as they are in real life, you know, let's be clear, the layout is absolutely there. But if, you know, little curb changes and little runoff area changes and things like that, or perhaps undulation changes that happen in real life, unfortunately, most of the tracks do remain unchanged. And the final reason not to buy for me is a bit of a more minor one, but the AI still aren't great on lap 1. It's not that realistic to be able to, you know, say, do a great qualifying lap in a My Team car that's struggling at the moment, and maybe you qualify P12 and you're really happy with that. But then on certain tracks at the start, you can quite easily get up to sort of P5 if you really send it. I think a lot more casual players will be doing that as well. People at the back, you know, Latifi can't dive up the inside and get up to P10 in the Williams. It just doesn't happen in real life. It's too risky, and it just isn't the room. You know, if there was room to do that, other drivers would be doing it. It's a more minor one, don't get me wrong, but I feel like the majority of you do play career mode, the majority of you play offline, the majority of you more casual players, you know, you will still be able to absolutely send it if you choose to do so up the inside, because sometimes they are still a little bit single file on lap 1. But minor point as it may be, I do think that will affect you guys, or affect the majority of you quite a bit. Okay, on to your guys' biggest obstacles to buying the game then. So I put a tweet out that says, what are your biggest obstacles to buying the F122 game? The video titled, should you buy F122? So any reasons why you don't want to buy the game are welcome, or maybe reasons you would not recommend other people play it. Now, you know, I wanted to give in this video my thoughts on pros and cons, but I thought, you know, you guys know what you guys don't want to buy it for. I'm always in a different position, of course. So I wanted to hear really what you guys that buy the game en masse really think about it. Now, I had lots and lots of response to this one. Almost 180 of you responded, which is amazing. I definitely don't normally get that many responses on my tweet. I will put a link to the tweet down in the description. If you want to go and read them all yourself, you are more than welcome to. Of course, that tweet will remain up, or will not be deleting it or anything like that. But I boiled those down into 4 broad categories, because there were so many minute categories. There were so many smaller reasons, which actually surprised me. I thought I was going to see a really broad trend of maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 reasons, and that was going to be it. But no, everyone had a small, tiny reason, which I guess highlights how hard game development is. You can't make everybody happy with simple changes. But here's my 4 broader categories then. So the first one is cost. Now, The game isn't cheap, let's be honest, especially as a yearly release title. It isn't cheap. Not everybody can afford it. It's as simple as that sometimes. I think particularly as well, EA seem to have put the cost up since they got the F1, since they bought Codemasters, particularly in other, I guess, non-UK regions. I guess you'll call them away regions, potentially even doubled in prices in some regions. So I definitely think that's a huge part of it. And just the straight cost, just not everyone can afford it, as simple as that as well. Also in this category, I'm going to put a lack of sort of time really to play or other games priority. Some people just say, look, I've got kids. Fair enough. Other people saying, this year my priority is F1 Manager. Again, I think this just boils down to cost in general. People say, well, I can't afford to buy F1 Manager and F1 22, so I'm going to choose one or the other. That's definitely the biggest obstacle to people buying the game is actually money more than anything else, but also then just general resources for the game. Another big obstacle for people buying the game is just online in general. Again, lots and lots of different reasons for this. Generally, though, most people are just saying poor stability. Poor stability and lack of functionality, really. I think, to be honest, you can boil most people's moans about online is it's just straight stability. And also just I guess, lack of creativity, lack of really any new ideas in online. It has been the same for a number of years. There's no new game modes. You could combine career mode with online. Just like you get in FIFA, a similar sort of thing to that. You could just have cool new game modes. Like we see in the supercars with the sort of checkpoint modes, anything like that. And it just isn't. Lack of innovation, I think, is a key reason, as well as stability. So two big things there with online that people aren't happy with. Another big obstacle for people is a category that I'm just calling game dev issues. Obviously, bugs are a huge one in this category. People just saying, I don't like the amount of bugs in it, etc., etc. Or perhaps, I'll wait till a few months after release to buy it, so the bugs are ironed out, that kind of thing. People also saying about the bad handling. I think just perhaps handling not to their preference. A lot of people call it simcade, and they feel like it's moved more arcadey. I don't agree. I think it's moved a bit more simulation over the years. There is always going to be people that want it to be a full-on simulator, and I get it. But of course, then you're alienating, let's be honest, a majority of the market. Most people are not sim racers with rigs and wheels. Most people are pad players on console. So that one, I guess, a pinch of salt, and that completely depends, I guess, which side that you fall down, where you want it more sim or more approachable. And then as well, in this category, I'm going to put in the AI last year. There was actually a number of responses I had. They were mentioning the AI last year were too OP in high-speed corners, which is definitely the case. They basically gave them more downforce last year. Once they went above 200 kilometers an hour, the AI effectively had more downforce than the player, which is why through certain corners, you saw they were just inhumanly quick, and there was no way, no matter what, you could go as quick through that corner as the AI. So, but understandably, last year that was frustrating people. During my 2-player career with Team at Marduk, we were having to change the AI between 110 and 101, which is on a single track that would be a change of something like 2 seconds per lap, something like that. So the fact that we have to change it that much across the course of the season just shows you how consistent AI were last year, which we're hoping is improved this year. And the final broad category that I've boiled the objections down to then it is just content in general. There's a few mentions for classic cars, which of course they had a number of years ago. I think it was F1 2020 was the last game, I think, to have classic cars, which they've now obviously still haven't got. Also, a lot of people just saying they just don't care about F1 Live, don't care about supercars. I get people's point about saying this shouldn't be a development priority for them, and I completely get that. If they didn't do F1 Life and supercars this year, would they be able to do more content, a better game other than that? Yes, probably. But honestly, a lot of it is licensing and car models, which, we've already got the F1 license, we've already got the car models. A few people saying add F3 and W series and things like that, which obviously would be great. But again, I just think most people don't even play F2, so why would they add F3? I'm not sure that's priority. And honestly, I think more people will play supercars, or at least there will be more hours spent driving supercars than there would have been hours driving an F3 car. That's just an opinion, but I believe that is the case. So, yeah, again, for me personally, I'm not sure I agree. And I have spoken to the handling designer of the game, and he's actually said that adding supercars actually improved the physics of the game, because they put supercars in and went, our physics model isn't reacting the right way in this way, let's tweak it. So it's actually improved the game in certain ways. So don't look at it like a negative to game dev. In some ways, it's improved the game. For me, I don't think it really holds it back, but I definitely can see the lack of classic cars, things getting removed from the game. Also, obviously, the breaking point getting removed as well. I can certainly see a drawback for that. But in terms of the F1 Life and supercars, I can't see a huge amount of negatives for that. It's just something extra you're getting in the game. And one final point, which doesn't really need its own category, a lot of people just moaning just about EA. I think EA perhaps haven't got the best reputation. My personal experience with them, I've not got any issues. I've not seen anything that's gotten worse with EA. EA Music is a brand new thing, which would have only really come about with EA. I don't think Codemaster on their own would have been able to get the licenses required for the music, or at least wouldn't have prioritized that. EA's reputation is what it is. People don't like EA. People think that they're very money grabbing and they're all about DLC and stuff. And obviously, F1 Life, you can buy the customization, but to me, as long as it's visuals only, I don't really care. If they start saying pay £10 to unlock the Mercedes team, that's an issue. I believe they are possibly adding some DLC tracks later in the year, but again, I don't mind that. If there's tracks that are not on the official calendar, like Istanbul in Turkey or Malaysia, if that's available for a few pounds, £5 each, whatever it may be, that's worth it to me. Games like iRacing, that's their model. Definitely there was a chunk of people that just said, EA is the reason that I'm not buying the game, which I guess surprised me to some extent, given that last year's game was also published by EA and there was no real changes. This year's game, there's no real drawbacks to EA being in charge. So I don't know, not for me personally, but there it is. Okay, so hopefully now you've got a much better idea of whether you should or should not buy F1 22. I tried to be as impartial as I possibly could in this video. Previously I've not really been negative on the game because I had preview early access builds whereby it is an early build of the game. It's not really possible to judge any bugs and any issues. It could all change before release. Now, though, with the release week coming, I've got the review build, so I can now finally kind of be a bit, I guess, more on both sides of the coin, rather than just showing you new things while also not really giving my opinion or comment or review, I guess. Yeah, let me know what you guys thought down in the comments. Hopefully, there's enough in this video of pros, cons, and also what you guys think as well. Certainly, keep the conversation going down below. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already as well. We're on the road to 100,000 subscribers now, and I thank you for watching. Bye-bye.